Welcome back. As the whistleblower Edward Snowden informed us, but many people suspected already, governments and government organisations do snoop on the data and communications of literally billions of individuals. And it's unlikely this just means one or two governments. But why can't it work in reverse? Why can't the public have access to government data so interested parties develop more of a voice in guiding government decisions? That's the question asked by some politicians and civil society groups like Open Data Hong Kong. They say the technology is there, but the political will to open up is missing. Well, with us in the studio are Waltraut Ritter of Open Data Hong Kong and the Civic Party's Ronny Tong. Can I come to you first? What actually does open data mean?
Well, open data came up maybe about 20 years ago when governments discovered that public information is a civic capital. And, but only the Internet has really changed how we deal with this, because the Internet makes it possible for everyone to access the data, to use the data, and to use it unrestricted. That means without any permission or with any license and without any costs, of course. So in that sense, maybe government information and data has always been there, but the Internet totally changed the way how citizens and business can have access to that information.
Can you just, to put some flesh on this, I mean, you happen to come from Germany. How does that work in Germany? Just a couple of examples, maybe.
Well, in Germany and in Europe, we have open data since 2003 officially. So there's a law that everything that is produced by a public organization must be open by default. So that means citizens can have access to statistics, geospatial information, information about spending, information about records, about nearly everything, unless it is restricted by some security issues. But generally, public information is open.
Ronny Tong, can I come to you? I mean, what's the likelihood of anything like this happening in Hong Kong?
Under this administration, I think chances are nil. But I couldn't agree more. I think transparency is the best form of government. I think it is also some kind of check and balance on the quality of governance that you can have in a particular place. If all the data are open, officials are unlikely to basically put forward a false case. Now, under this particular administration, for example, a lot of the times we question the decision made by the government, and we keep asking us based on what sort of data do you reach your conclusion. Take the universal retirement plan as an example. The government keeps saying it's unworkable, and we keep asking the government, based on what data do you say is unworkable? Let's have some facts and see how you reach a particular decision, whether that decision in fact is a sound decision or not. So, I totally agree that we should have open data from the government, but whether it can be done is a different question.
Almost a technical subject. I don't see any head of steam in Hong Kong pressing for this.
Well, the technicality is not an issue. Like you say, the will to do it. In particular, I always suspect the government just don't want to open up anyway, because once it opens up its data, its records, they can vilify even more by people who are opposed to the administration. So I think there is a certain bias towards not, saying anything, not revealing anything to the public.
I mean, Open Data Hong Kong is working with the government in a rather non-confrontational way. I mean, how far do you think you're getting?
Yeah, I would like maybe to add that I think the government in Hong Kong per se is not against open data, and I mean,
that's what they say.
That's well, I mean,
let's see what they do.
In 2011, we have this data.1, which is a first attempt. It was started as an experiment to publish data sets from certain departments, like the Transport Department, Food and Hygiene Department, Observatory, and Census and Statistics Department.
But no one knows about it.
That's a start. Of course, we have more than 90 government agencies and many more semi-governmental bodies that also have interesting information. So, but at least we can see there is a change in the thinking that this data could be potentially open. And so the question for us in the civil society and also in the business is, of course, how can we speed up this process? Why is open data not open by default as it is in other countries?
I mean, let me just ask you, if you take the example of Britain, for example, and members of Parliament, all of their expenses are easily visible to anybody online. I mean, do you think it would be a good idea to go that far here?
Sure. I mean, you know, I'm totally supportive of opening up all the relevant data. You know, the departments you mentioned are not the most controversial ones in Hong Kong, and that's why, you know, we could have data from these departments. But even then, I'm not sure this whole project is known to the general public. At least I don't know about it. So what's the use of opening data if nobody knows about it?
Yes, okay, that's exactly why what Open Data Hong Kong is about. I mean, we are a small community of active citizens and data scientists and journalists, and we want to show what can you do, what kind of useful things can you do with the information and data, and also raise awareness about this. And we know that it is a long way, but on the other hand, we have so many examples from other countries, so maybe we just need a few really convincing cases. And
I think what would be helpful here, in fact, is can you just give us an example of something that would be of immediate benefit to the public if open data existed?
Yes, so of immediate benefit, of course, is something that has been done in many countries, is open transport data.
Right.
So I think Hong Kong is one of the few cities in the world where you don't know when the next bus is coming. In many other countries, you have real-time traffic information systems. But of course, this is, if you look closer at it, it's a very complex issue because we have private bus operators and they wouldn't release their operational data. But on the other hand, in Seoul, that's one of the reasons why they returned the buses to be under public control, because then the government can decide, or the public can decide on how this is run most efficiently.
But we are more interested in government data rather than you know, private operators.
Okay, in government data, well, let's look, for instance, at the LegCo data.
Right. Well, we're not really part of the government.
Okay.
We're there to check the government.
Okay.
Public sector.
Then let's look at the Food and Hygiene Department or Food Security.
Right.
I mean, we know that Hong Kong only has 2.5% of urban agriculture. So that means we are not really very resilient in terms of our own food supply. So with the data that we get from the Food and Hygiene Department, we could perhaps discover what are the opportunities for Hong Kong to raise food resilience. Yeah? So that's one example where information from the public sector could be used for civil society or business to think about alternative policies or creating new policies.
But we're more at the moment. We're more interested in you know, the Northeast Development Plan. I mean, if we get more data from the Development Bureau, then we can have a more meaningful discussion. You're talking about the
creation of these two new towns.
That's right. I mean, we can have more meaningful discussion, not only, you know, with the government.
I mean, the suspicion is that the administration takes the view that information is power and lacking access to information.
Well, I understand that, but I don't accept that.
I mean, do you find that mentality in talking to officials?
That they don't want to release?
Well, no, that they regard the fact that they have possession of this data as part of their arsenal of power.
Okay, that's right, but that's also kind of pre-digital thinking. So in information societies, we understand that public information is owned by the public. But this view that the government owns information I think, comes from the pre-digital times. So I think that's a mindset issue, of course. Yeah.
Well, it's a mindset issue that's going to take a long time to sort out, but thank you both very much. And I'm afraid that's it for this episode of The Pulse. Time for our usual reminder that if you've missed part of it, want to see more or even see it again, you can always go to the Pulse page on the RTHK website. You can also download podcasts to watch at any time of the day. Also, if you want to chat to us or tell us what you think, go to our Facebook page, RTHK's The Pulse.